Hobgoblins and witches and things that go bump in the night.
Hello and welcome back to Evil Dread. I'm Wyeth,
And I'm Lynn.
and this week
It's a Wyeth pick.
it's been a long time coming. It's a movie that we both love.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We watched It Follows
Again for one of third or fourth time
We've
for me.
we've seen it together a couple times
Yeah,
also.
multiple times. And we also watched a very obscure, weird short film that we had both read. Wyeth suggested it for the pod, but I had read this also separately. That it was a big piece of inspiration for David Robert Mitchell, who did It Follows. So we watched the 1983 short film Possibly in Michigan.
Which
More than we bargained for.
I was not expecting anything about that short film.
Yeah, all I knew was it took place in a department store and someone was following a woman, and it was so much more.
Which is also the plot to It Follows.
Yeah.
If you couldn't gather it from the title.
So do you want to do like a plot overview of It Follows?
Let's dive into Possibly in Michigan.
Okay.
We need to unpack what we just witnessed.
We watched It Follows on our own time, and we were like, we'll do the 11 minutes of Possibly in Michigan together before the pod. I'm gonna let you do the summary because I don't know what happened.
It's an experimental avant-garde short from 1983, and it's a cannibal opera.
It's done on clearly videotape.
Yeah.
Like tapes. Like someone had a tape in the old recorder and just taped over and over and over, and then taped the movie being shown on TVs. There's a lot of VHS effects that are really cool that I loved.
Yeah.
It's super grainy, low res. It looks like something that would be shown at 3:45 in the morning on a public access channel, and you think it might you might be cursed now.
Or when you go to a resale shop and you pick up a Titanic on VHS, and one of the two tapes is mysterious looking, and you put it in your VHS player, and it's this thing.
I have some anecdotes about that. Can I tell an
Please.
anecdote? Okay. One, if you don't follow Everything is Terrible on social media or watch their videos, you definitely should, because that's what they do. They go to garage sales and resale shops and buy the VHSs that no one wants, and then they recut them, and it's really great. And also, I was having movie night with some of my friends when I lived in Albuquerque, and they had a huge VHS collection. Shout out to Jet and Matt. And we wanted to watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
As you do.
So we put in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and it was not that. It was
oh God.
Another VHS of the Power Rangers in Space series, and it was 3 episodes, but we watched it for about 40 minutes waiting for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then Jet was so mad she destroyed it.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm glad it wasn't a snuff film.
It could have been. They also had a Pinocchio porno, and it just said,
"What?
His nose isn't the only thing that grows."
I hate that.
I need to go do a special episode when I visit Albuquerque on their VHS collection, because it's next level.
Wild.
Anyway, Possibly in Michigan.
The 80s mall aesthetic is very strong.
It's there. Recently over the summer I watched Shopping Mall for the first time. Very the same. Very similar. Just there's something so creepy about being in a consumerism palace where you're surrounded by strangers, and it can be really empty but also really crowded at the same time. I don't like it.
There's a great series on YouTube, I forget the name, but it's this guy who visits malls on the last day before they close.
Yes, I love dead malls.
And he narrates it, but what I like to do is I mute it and just turn on ambient music and watch.
So weird.
Just watch him explore these decaying
that's so
capitalistic
scary.
behemoths.
Yeah. There was I don't know why I'm talking about Albuquerque so much today, but there's some weird applicable details. But there's a underground. There's some tunnel systems, and
Oh man,
one of the entrances was in a dead mall.
oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you know there's tunnel system under OSU?
Okay, but that's like an urban legend that there's a tunnel system everywhere.
Oh no, I have
though.
friends that have gone down there.
Okay, I have friends that have gone into
Well, maybe
Albuquerque's
all
tunnels.
of these urban legends are actually true for a change.
True. I mean,
There you have it,
yeah.
your local underground tunnel system.
Let's go explore.
Let's go spelunking.
Ew. I've seen The Descent, bro. I also have no athletic ability.
That's up there on my scary movies list. But
Okay,
anyway, we have
okay.
gone wildly off topic.
We're
so
having fun. It's okay.
this is a good sign.
I don't know how to talk about this movie. I don't know how to describe
This
it.
is a short that everyone and no one should see.
I immediately wanted to send it to every single person I know. So basically, it opens with this woman in a mall in 1983, and this man in a mask. He's in a tuxedo and like a mask of a man's face, but it's like his mouth is open.
It's a
and
real
like a
Mr.
scream.
Robot looking get up.
Kind of, yeah, but also like mixed with like Munch's The Scream. It's
Yeah.
very like tortured, caught in like the death scream or whatever looking mask, and he is kind of like Tyler Durden-esque and appears and disappears like behind them and in their like purview and like in the corner of their eyes and everything. But it says, it was like, this man loves violence and women, and he's chasing these women, and these women love violence and perfume, and they all have two things in common: a love of violence and perfume. And so it's a lot of like shots of these women like dousing themselves in like decadent perfumes, but also like them turning into corpses. Also, can you talk about the dog thing that they talk about?
They tell just out of nowhere, as you do, they share the story of a woman who puts a poodle in a microwave.
Well, they're like, this smells like Aunt whatever. And they're like, Aunt whatever was crazy. And they're like, out of her head. She put a poodle in a microwave. To eat it? No, to dry it. And it exploded her and the dog. It's so weird.
I've heard way too many stories about people actually doing that to their pets.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Also an urban legend. I took a class in urban legends. I know
What?
some of the
That's
common
amazing.
ones. Yeah. And dogs exploding and microwaves and tunnel systems are two very common ones, but I mean, I'm sure it's happened. But yeah, and that's intercut with shots of dogs, shots of meat being
Consumed
and butchered, and explosions,
and
like demolition video of buildings.
Women on their deathbeds.
Yeah.
And
It's rad.
there's these. So there's not just one masked man. There's lots of them.
Well, I feel like he is changing masks. Also, they do go to like there's some shots of the main woman like dancing with men around her in all these masks. But I think there's like, they say at the end, like, this man, he's worn so many masks he forgets what he looks like.
Oh yeah. There's a lot to unpack in that 12 minutes. So eventually this man breaks in to one of the women's houses, tries...
Rock through the window.
Yep, rock through the window, covered in worms.
Yeah.
And he proceeds to like slow motion slap her until her friend shows up and shoots him, and then together they share a nice cannibal feast.
Yep, they cook him in a pot. And
Fancy feast, because he was wearing a suit.
Yeah, and then, but while they're topless, eating his bones and drinking wine, he appears behind them outside the window, and then like ducks when they look over. So he's not really.
So really, it's the ever looming threat of the patriarchy.
Oh shit! Okay. It was just us. We neglected to mention that every line was sung.
Yeah, hence the opera.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, I loved it.
This is a movie like you should have like a drink or smoke before.
There's a lot of drinking
consuming.
and smoking in the movie as well. So are you saying something perhaps other than tobacco is what you need to?
I'm not. Well, what I am saying is, you do you.
I think that would make this worse. I think it would make it infinitely more terrifying.
It would stretch it out eons if a bad trip were to occur.
You saw my reaction to this film, dead sober. I would lose it.
Your mouth was open for
It
11 minutes straight.
Shocking what I saw. I don't know. It's a wonderful, weird short film.
Speaking of bad trips, I saw several at the Explosions in the Sky concert Friday.
Oh my god, I bet.
I was not expecting that. There was a guy like dancing in a circle near the back of the concert, and he was just muttering to himself.
I think we know that guy.
I think we do too. And then at another point, a girl like slowly went down to her knees, facing away from the concert, and was just playing with her hair for a little bit.
All right, cool beans. I think this about a lot of weird short movies that we watch, but either in class or on this. But if I had a band, this is what I would play in the background.
Like opening as you're getting set up.
No, just like during the music. This would be the audio visual component of my performance. I would play something like possibly a Michigan or Finis Tere, which is a very inside joke for people who took the film seminar last fall. Finis Tere is like a French short film from the 1930s about two little gay boys on an island setting out seaweed. It's like, I love it. I want to either have a band or open a bar and show shit like that in the background. I do well in OKC.
Are you going to call it the Avant Bar?
Oh no.
Keep that one. Keep that one just in the back of your mind.
But it's okay.
Well, anyway,
thoughts on possibly Michigan though. Final thoughts. If you can gather any.
Oh man, I don't regret watching it. I also don't know if it added anything to my life.
Okay.
But it is an experience.
I really loved it just for its,
It is 12 minutes of an experience.
I've never seen anything like it. And the fact that it was made in 1983 blew my mind, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, It Follows?
It Follows.
Why did you pick this movie, Wyatt?
Because it came out 2015 and since I first saw it, it has become it's tied for my favorite horror movie.
Whoa, what's the other one?
The Thing.
Oh yeah.
John Carpenter's.
Yeah. Okay. Why would you say that?
This to me is a perfect horror movie. Like, it looks great. The cinematography is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
The soundtrack.
Poetic cinema.
Oh man, some serious poetic cinema. The soundtrack is a real banger.
It is.
I definitely have it in my car and on overcast days when I'm feeling particularly spooky.
Oh my god.
I'll listen to it and scare myself a little bit.
I do that with The Guest.
It's a good one. And the acting is really great across the board. Mm-hmm. So the movie centers around a group of kids, and
I'd say they're like 20. 19,
yeah,
20.
like late high school, early college.
Yeah.
And they all feel like that age.
Mm-hmm.
They all feel real. Like, they all make choices that kids would do.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk about Micah Monroe?
Yes.
My angel screen queen of the, 2010s or whatever. She is so good in this movie. And it's interesting that we picked The Guest last week because this has become like a Micah Monroe podcast because she's also Anna in The Guest. But yeah, I think she's a phenomenal actress and she brings like some real chops to some horror movies and gives them credibility, I think. I also looked at her IMDb and bitch got like 10 movies coming out in this year and next year. So like I'm very proud of her.
She's going to be the next Mia Wasikowska.
Why like you're not like super good at pronouncing
I
like
am
regular names.
terrible at names.
But yeah, I that's one of my anxieties is I check people's IMDb's a lot and make sure that they're still making money. Like I really want my favorite actors to have like a quality income.
I get
And
that.
like not have like 10-year gaps, but she's killing it.
I'm always checking on Kyle Chandler. Like, how's Coach doing?
I'm looking at like the net worth of like Jason Mantzoukas. So for when I marry him, I know what our shared
what you're getting
income would
into,
be.
or if he's down on his luck, you have a couch for him.
Yeah, I do.
You hear that, Jason?
Jason, I'm single. Anyway.
Anywho, would you like to share the plot of It Follows?
Sure. So It Follows centers, not sentences, centers on a girl named Jay, and I'd say she makes a comment that her BF is 21, so she's like 19, 20, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
She's taken some college classes, but still living with her mom and sister. So anyway, they live in, I guess, a suburb of Detroit, possibly in Michigan. And she goes out with this guy. He seems very nice. He's acting a little erratic on the date. He's like he references a woman in the crowd at this movie theater, and she can't see that woman. He kind of freaks out a little bit and leaves. So that night, they are making out. They're getting a little hot and heavy, and they end up having sex in his car. She is like totally cool with it. It's like a very positive experience for her.
She's the one who instigated it.
Yes, she's like, let's go back to the car.
Well, it's not a positive experience
No,
because
in retrospect, he chloroforms her and ties her to a wheelchair and takes her to a abandoned parking garage to explain what's happening to him.
he has basically received an STD of a poltergeist.
Yes, this movie. I saw this much after this, a long time after I saw this movie. But there's like a screenshot floating around the internet from this like Christian app, and the app gave this notification that said condoms won't protect from sexually transmitted demons, and I'm like, It Follows 2014. So that's true.
So
yeah.
Basically, it's this like a succubus or something like that.
It's if you have sex with someone that has it, it will start following you, and it can appear as anyone, be it someone you know or someone you don't. But it constantly follows you, just at a very slow pace. It's like a Michael Myers-esque kind of thing.
Like it's walking at a constant speed.
It's very slow, direction. But it's coming always. It never stops. And so Jay is given this because if you sleep with a person, it goes to that person rather than you. So you're kind of off the hook. So you just have to keep passing it along. However, if it kills Jay, it will go to that guy and go back down the line towards wherever the hell it started, you know. And it's one of those movie monsters that's so vague and specific at the same time. Like, the rules are very clearly laid out, and we know exactly, like, its MO and its end game and everything, but, like, there is no explanation as its origin or how it came to, you know, how it does this.
It's one of those creatures, or, like, monsters that the rules are so simple, and that's why it's terrifying. Like a lot of the Doctor Who monsters. Like the Weeping Angels. Yeah, and
I watched Doctor Who back in the day.
Like the Silence. The Silence was always my favorite because of how creepy that is.
Yeah.
And so Jay and her friends, who are good friends and believe her right away that this is happening to her, they set about.
Also, only she can see it. They can't see it, which is, you know, a difficulty in the beginning. They're like, no one's in here, and she's like, yes, there is.
The terrifying school scene. Her second encounter with it.
The first encounter is a nude woman.
The second encounter is she's in like a freshman lit class, which and she looks out the window, sees this old lady in like a doctor's, like,
Gown.
yeah,
Hospital
a
gown.
hospital gown, walking toward her across the campus.
Just staring at her.
Mm-hmm. And so she like runs out of the classroom, and like how presumptuous of it is the teacher who gets upset that a student leaves in the middle of class.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe community college is different from where we I almost exposed us, sorry.
Oh man.
But yeah, I was like, chill. She like obviously has an emergency. But this is one of those movies where I feel like everything is meaningful, and I was really trying on this watch through to like decode the poem that the teacher was saying, and it's about Lazarus, and it's like when it cuts to the woman, it's like, you will know fear and I will return.
As if Lazarus back from the dead.
Yeah.
It's T.S. Eliot, isn't it?
I don't know. You're the poet, Mater.
The
It's
Proof
not the
Frog or
Wasteland.
whatever.
Oh yeah, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock.
Yeah, that's it. I'm pretty sure.
We're literary, high-minded.
Highbrow.
Beautiful.
Gross. And so Jay runs out of the classroom, runs past a group of girls, and like stops. And the old lady follows her down the hall and walks between the two girls, and that's how
They
Jay
don't
learns.
notice.
Yeah.
And she's like, hello, and the girls turn back and say, hello? Like, what?
Like, this, like, if the movie has rules, but it plays kind of loose with them, which I kind of like.
Yeah. That was a question I had. He can still see it, even though it's not on him anymore.
Right.
Which I had never noticed until this run through. I don't know how that shakes out, but
like, since watching this movie, I've wondered what would I do if I contracted this entity, and I decided
okay.
I would
Right.
like. I feel like they could have taken some time to like study it, because it's slow enough. And so what I would do.
That's true. It doesn't. There's no like Buffy scene in the library where they're like, "Give me all the books on this demon right now."
So what I would do is like go out to a football field and get my friends who hopefully would believe me, like Jay's friends, and have them line up like streamers. That way we can measure how fast it's walking.
What? That's okay.
Like time it.
Why?
To see how fast it's moving. That way you can measure out the distance of like how much time you have at certain locations.
Even if I am dying and pursued by a malevolent force, this bitch ain't gonna be caught doing math. Sorry about it. Okay.
Or
get on a plane.
I read an interview with the director saying it could board a plane.
Ugh, I hate that. Okay. How about this though? I had an idea. I don't know. I would probably just die. No. Call an escort service. Escort service. And then it'll just be pass.
Well, that's what happens in this movie. But
they don't explore it to the extent that I would. Okay, like that's like a last resort for them, and I'm like, I believe and support sex workers, but also I know you probably won't have it that long, and you'll probably give it to some shitty dude who's cheating on his wife, like you know.
Yeah, but then it comes back to them.
Just keep passing around.
That's the question.
Keep throwing that pussy around.
So
dude.
if you spread it from person A to person B, and it starts to go after person B, if you were to sleep with person C, would it come after person C?
The transitive property of demonic STDs? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just very curious. Like, I've had a lot of time to think about the logic of It Follows.
That's hilarious. Okay, my question, pretty inelegant, as you can imagine. It's about to be, what counts? Is the demon housed in the sperm?
The director has an answer for it.
What has to happen?
The director said that you can still catch it through same sex and condom use.
I'm not saying that. I know my mom listens to this.
Hi, Mom.
That's why I'm kind of okay. I'm saying, does it have to be, let's say, to completion, or through other means?
I think it's just through like, the act of joining.
Okay, so like herpes.
Yeah.
So it's like a skin to skin thing.
So obviously, you can see this whole movie as a metaphor for STDs.
I would argue with that. I think that's too easy.
I agree with that. I like the director's view that
Director David Robert Mitchell also.
did a fantastic job
Love
with
him.
this. He had stated that it's more a metaphor for emotional baggage.
Ooh, okay. See, I was thinking the aftermath of a sexual assault.
Ooh.
Because how the film is framed, like it is consensual and she says so, but it's as if this memory of the night with the guy is haunting her.
Oh yeah.
So it's like that thought is following her and she can't let it get too close.
And also, I think so. The entity appears as random people, and
I disagree. I think there's some method to that.
I think so too.
Which we'll get into right now, I guess.
So when it appears as someone you know, it's dressed all in white. Well, everyone's dressed in white or like less clothes.
Yeah.
If it's someone that you know, I think it's just like plain white. But if it's someone that you don't know, they're dead already.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Old lady.
Old lady died in a hospital. The little boy looks like he had a disease on his face.
Yeah. That
The,
super tall dude.
was super thin. He looks like he starved to death.
Yeah. Okay, so the first person it appears as is a nude woman immediately after she has sex with this man and he assaults her and, knocks her out, all that stuff. Second time it appears, it's the old woman in a hospital gown. Third time, it is a girl who...
like Jay's age.
Yes, who is, like, has a black eye and her bra is, like, askew.
Her front teeth are missing.
Her front teeth are missing. She's urinating on herself.
And her hands are tied behind her back.
Yeah. So I feel like that points to...
like a sexual assault.
Sexual assault.
Yeah.
And kind of the specter of that. Or the nude woman. It's a lot of, like, extremely visceral, difficult to watch, or, like, confrontational representations of sexuality. Like, her dad appears, but he's nude, which is,
That's not her dad.
Yeah, it is.
On the roof?
Yeah.
No. He's way older, and he doesn't have the stubble.
Okay. Anyway, I thought that was her dad, and I was like, that means something. Anyway. But I think, it's not random how they appear to her.
This movie doesn't feel exploitive.
No, it
doesn't.
doesn't.
Despite some very clear lines to sexual assault.
Yeah, it's not tawdry or, exploitative in the least. It's very tastefully done, weirdly.
Yeah, you like these characters for the most part, and I think that's rare in a lot of horror, because I feel like a lot of horror doesn't know how to make likable characters.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely. Oh yeah, also, I'm sorry, I just remembered, when the sexy guy next door who takes it for her, Greg, his mom is who appears to him, and then forces herself on him.
Yeah.
So that's just like
his
another
naked mom.
Like really heavy, dark representation of like incest
that scene
and
is
assault.
Disgusting.
It's terrifying, and it's so like. It all is done so slowly and so deliberately that it doesn't feel manipulative of the audience. There's no, like, jump scares, really.
Yeah, even the scene where it breaks into Jay's house, and there's
in the same way that the guy did in Possibly in Michigan.
Yeah. Like like the window breaks. Not Greg. Who's the
Other kid.
shoot? I forget his
I
name.
don't know.
He goes to investigate, says no one's there, and then Jay goes, and you know something is there, and so it doesn't really. There's no jump scares.
No. It's more about like a creeping dread. Because a lot of the movie and a lot of its like effectiveness is you becoming extremely paranoid that anyone in the frame could be it. So you're looking behind the characters constantly just to see if there's like a person walking in the background.
And because the movie is shot in such a wide angle, there's more space to worry about, which really increases it.
I saw this at the theater, and then I had to walk a few blocks home, and that sucked. Okay.
I saw this, and I was dog sitting.
Oh God.
At the time, and being in a house alone was terrifying. Like this was the first time that I saw a movie and went home and was scared like later in the day.
Really? Okay. Says the guy who makes us go to matinees.
No, like I'm scared in the moment when watching a movie in theaters, but like once the lights go up, like, oh, ride's over.
All right.
But then like it followed me home.
Okay. How do you feel about the ending?
I think that
Yeah, go ahead.
The ending, Jay and her friends come up with like a Scooby-Doo plan to electrocute it at a local pool.
Very smart.
And they lure it there, and it comes very close to killing Jay, but they shoot it in the head, and the pool fills with some real Guillermo del Toro crimson blood.
And those scenes are so amazing because they're also shot from the perspective of the friends. So it's just like thin air and then like some blood popping. Like, splattering a little bit. So you know it's there and you know you're hitting something, but it's invisible.
Throughout the movie, they like hurt it several times, and it just like walks it off. And it's not that much blood, but then when they shoot it while it's in the pool, the blood like completely fills the pool. And I think I just came up with this theory last night, so it hasn't been tested.
Vetted. Okay.
I think it lost its power in water.
Ooh, okay. What? But she goes out on that boat.
But she comes back to land.
Does she not sleep with the guys on the boat?
I think she did.
Yeah, but...
And so it killed one of them or whatever, and then came back to her. But the fact that they shot it when it was in the water, maybe it had to be attached to like physical land for it to keep going.
Interesting, because it is all about walking.
Because Jay is shown early on in a happy place in her backyard pool.
Yes.
So the pool is her domain, and she has power over it. And once it follows her into the pool and is killed, it's lost its power.
So do you think at the very end that that's just a person behind them? Or
I think so. The ending shot is Jay holding hands with...
Lame boy.
I thought it was alright.
He's a nerd.
So...
Okay.
And whose name now escapes me. They're shown walking
Paul. His name's Paul.
There we go. So Paul and Jay holding hands walking down the street, and in the background there's someone following along. I mean, it's supposed to be left ambiguous, but I don't think it's it.
Okay. All right.
What do you think?
Well, also she sleeps with Paul, and Paul goes to a sex worker.
Yeah.
So there are multiple ways it could be gone. Right? I hope it's gone.
I hope so too.
There was rumblings, right? Well, for about a year after this movie, that there was going to be a sequel called Follow It.
I want that still.
Okay, I don't know. I think it's perfect as it is.
If all the original players come back,
I
Like,
just don't. I mean, they could track it to the beginning, but that would mean a lot of people would have to die,
Yes.
including her.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Unless they found another way to track it back.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like its power, the power of the movie is in its ambiguity.
Yeah, I don't want to see the mystique or like the mysteriousness of this movie undercut by here's a sudden book of mythology about it.
Yeah. Also, like, that's a kick-ass title,
Mm-hmm.
but like, I don't know how they would live up to that title. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, I would love to see it done well, but worst case scenario, it's a sequel to Donnie Darko,
Yeah.
which is a thing that somehow happened.
Darko. I never saw it. But yeah, this is very much like a Donnie Darko-esque movie where it's kind of like lightning in a bottle
Mm-hmm, yeah.
once.
It's a great teen movie.
Mhm.
The atmosphere is incredible. It's both very scary, but then it's shot in Detroit, and
Yes.
it's one of the big 3 Detroit horror movies.
What are the others?
Only
I got
Lovers,
one. Yeah.
Left Alive, which is
Yeah.
fantastic,
Yeah, we'll watch that at some point.
and Don't Breathe.
Yeah.
Like they all make such great use of the dilapidated state of like outer Detroit.
That would be a kick-ass movie night.
That would be.
Don't Breathe, Only Lovers Left Alive, and It Follows.
Oh man, sign me up.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it feels very retro yet modern.
Okay, I was going to talk about this because I think it's very specifically made to be timeless by being anachronistic in both ways.
Yeah.
They have 2 TVs in the house, one stacked on top of the other, and they're both like 60s models.
Yeah.
They're both like hand crank channel changer,
Mm-hmm.
and they are watching like
1950s
50s B sci-fi alien movies. But also
everyone has station wagons.
Yeah, but also the friend is using this like shell compact Kindle thing, which doesn't exist. It's like a futuristic object. So it's so.
And the girl in the beginning has a cell phone.
Yeah, it's so outside of time.
And season.
Yes, I was going to talk about that too. Because like Jay in the very beginning is swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And then like next scene she's in a coat. And her sister is in cut off jean shorts. Like, it's not like. Nothing is consistent.
Yeah.
Even between people. Also, I think that might speak to it has one of the best cold opens I've ever seen in a movie, and it's a girl who's clearly being followed by the entity, but we don't know that yet. And she is in like 8-inch heels, just running, and it's so weird in such an odd detail.
A lot of people have made fun of her, like have criticized that scene, like, oh, why is she wearing heels? But it's like very obvious that she was getting ready to go out.
Yes.
And it caught up to her.
But it's also like it just adds to this sense of I can't establish where I am temporally, climately,
like that whole
seasonally, all of
that,
it.
Yeah, that opening scene is perfect. It's all one shot. It's basically just a camera spinning 360 degrees.
So scary. And it's such a quaint little suburb, kind of.
Yeah.
It reminded me, in one of my classes, I had to watch The Stepfather, which is a kind of a lesser appreciated horror movie.
Terry Quinn in it?
Yeah. But it's like the opening shot of that movie is his family home, and like everyone is massacred inside it, and he like kind of changes his appearance and he leaves, and it's like the most idyllic, beautiful autumnal street in like that same area.
Yeah.
And you would never know that happened there. Like, and there are all these other fathers going to work at the same time, and he just kind of blends in. And it's very similar to that. I feel like there's all this really hideous stuff happening in this very quiet, genteel suburb.
This looks like suburbs that I grew up in.
I grew up in the woods, so I can't relate.
I like it when movies use suburbia as horror.
I do too. I always wanted to live in suburbia growing up. I wanted neighbors, not deer.
The deer are amassing.
Deer are beautiful though. I saw some when I went home the other week. It was great. Anyway.
I recently read we're going on a quick tangent about deer.
Okay.
There's a Nightville post. Parents, talk to your kids about deer.
I saw
Are they
that.
prepared? And one time, as I was getting ready to leave my parents' house, my dad was staring out into the dark of night, and he just goes, "The deer had begun amassing," and walked to his room. And I was left on the porch thinking about that.
Okay. You would hate my house then. Or
I-
he would.
I don't trust nature.
Okay.
I like nature. I'm all about Greenpeace.
Okay. When I drive down the driveway, we see like deer and a bunch of babies, and they cross our little driveway. It's very sweet.
That's kind of
Anyway,
idyllic.
It Follows could use more deer, is what we're saying, I think.
Possibly. Jury's out.
Possibly in Michigan, who knows?
So-
I'm gonna continue saying that because I love that short film, and it's a very good title, I think.
So I have a question. So since It Follows encourages the viewer to watch the background,
Hmm.
do you think we see it before Jay sees it for the first time? Because there's a scene, because Jeff, the guy who passes it on to Jay, they go out on a date.
For dinner. Yeah, we see it.
I don't think that was it.
I think it was. Okay, go on.
Because
Give your explanation.
the movie keeps such a tight perspective of Jay throughout most of the movie.
Mhm.
Like anytime it's shot from another person's perspective, they can't see it. And then that scene in the diner where there's someone crossing the street towards the diner,
Mm-hmm.
because it's shot over Jay's shoulder.
So she wouldn't have, because she didn't see the girl in the yellow dress
Yeah.
5 minutes before. Okay, interesting. I think it's an effective device.
It definitely is very. There's a great sense of dread throughout
This
the
movie
beginning.
make walking seem scary.
If you weren't scared of people before,
Now if someone starts walking towards me, I'm like, who's that? What's that? Who's there? Get away.
I never trust
Get
people
away
who
from
make
me.
eye contact with me.
Oh my gosh. That's just called a woman living in a city. It's like, if anyone is walking towards you, you're like, get away from me.
Real terror.
When I was in high school, I watched this movie called The Myth of the American Sleepover.
Oh yeah, that's his first movie, David Robert Mitchell.
You stole my thunder. Yeah, that is the first movie of the It Follows director David Robert Mitchell, and it also captures this really weird. What am I thinking? Idiosyncratic, but also like
awkward adolescence.
Honey, just let me. I'm sorry, I know this is dead air, but isolated, weird, idiosyncratic, isolated form of adolescence and growing up in a cul-de-sac and everyone knowing each other. And it's one of those like one night movies where everyone like sneaks over to each other's houses, and it's like the ultimate wish fulfillment for me and like fantasy of being 16 and actually like having neighbor friends and stuff. It's a really sweet movie, and I loved it. I wrote a review of it for my high school newspaper.
Nice.
Aren't
some of the actors carryovers?
Paul is. Yeah, he's the main guy in The Myth of the American Sleepover. I don't know if it's hard to find. I saw it on like IFC or something like 5 years ago, but seek it out. It's really good.
Yeah, I've always meant to watch it.
I'm excited to see what he's gonna do next.
So earlier you mentioned you were thinking more about the symbolism in this viewing.
Yeah.
There's one scene where Jay is placing little pieces of grass along her leg, and I don't know. I've always wondered what that symbolizes. It looks kind of like cutting marks.
Yeah. I don't know. There's like everything in this movie is shot so intentionally and so like deliberately that I'm like, what's the secret meaning? What's the secret meaning? And then like I can't figure out one.
Yeah.
And I get mad at myself. But that, yeah, I'm not sure about that. or maybe like measuring out time or
Mhm.
distance or something. I'm not sure. But there's another shot. There's a lot of shots of overhead shots of her hands.
Yeah.
There's that one. There's one where she has like frozen yogurt
Mhm.
she's eating, and then the first one is her laying out like with her arms outside the car, like face down, and she's like talking and kind of touching this flower, and it's like a white flower, and she
Mhm.
has red fingernails, and I'm like, is that like, I don't know if she was a virgin,
I don't know either.
but it was very like red on the white and
Mhm.
flowers and white
There's also
as
the shot
purity.
with the ant at the
Yeah,
very
yeah,
beginning,
yeah.
where she drowns an ant that was crawling along her arm.
I don't know what any of
I
it
don't know.
means. I think the flower thing is like her like sexuality
Mhm.
and her, purity if she was a virgin.
Like, this
Not
movie
that that's
is-
a valid thing to
Yeah, the
social
composition in
construction.
this movie is so good. Like, every shot I kind of want framed.
Oh yeah. There's a ton of like amazing screenshots out. Just screen grabs look like
Hmm
photography.
Like, the green, like, one color that a lot of horror movies don't really make pop is green.
Yeah.
And the green is so vivid throughout this movie.
I hate the trend in horror movies to make everything gray and like
Dark
almost
blue.
black and white in its desaturation.
Yeah.
It's so uninteresting. Like, just look at something like Crimson Peak. It's goth as hell, and it's the most colorful movie
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
ever see. It can be so compelling to do great, interesting visuals in a horror movie.
I haven't seen it, but was it Suburbia?
What?
The
Disturbia?
art. Oh God, get ready for some real butchering.
What are you saying?
Darren Argento.
What? Oh my God. Okay. Suspiria from Dario Argento. Yeah, it's a beautiful movie. It's very colorful.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've always seen like really colorful shots from
It's
it.
set in a German ballet school run by witches, and it's very, very cool looking. Darren Argento Disturbia. No, it's Argento. I'm making fun of you.
Oh,
His
God,
name's
step
Dario
off.
Argento.
Dario Argento.
Suspiria.
Suspiria. Got
Yes.
it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, It Follows is just, once again, so well shot.
I agree. Can I give you a hot take?
Give me a hot take.
I got this DVD 2 years ago after it came out, and I haven't watched it since. I had to take off the stickers today.
Wow.
I love this movie, and I think it's wonderful,
Mhm.
but I have never really been compelled to revisit it since I saw it.
Huh.
I don't know. Today I
Wait,
saw...
you've watched it with me.
Yeah. Like at a party. Like when I'm by myself, I
Okay.
don't like watch It Follows.
Mhm.
Not that I think it's a bad movie. I just think it's not one. It's kind of like one and done for me. I guess. Like I get it, I don't know if it's a revisitable movie for me. Like today, I might have been proved wrong because I was seeing some interesting things. But I think it's effective, extremely effective the first time around. But maybe the second viewing, it's not as effective for me.
I mean, like with any horror movie, there's some horror movies that are lucky enough to like remain scary, and It Follows isn't as scary for me now, but it is definitely, it still keeps a sense of dread.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
I don't know. I feel like kind of the novelty wore off on me after the first time, and that's just a personal thing. I still think it's one of the best horror movies of the past, 10, 50 years, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the greats, but just for me personally, it's not a rewatchable film.
It's become kind of like a comfy t-shirt movie for me.
Okay.
Like, I just really love being in the movie.
Yeah. See, I have those too, and I can't explain why.
Yeah.
Like, I watch them all the time, constantly.
Like, there's a great sense of childhood innocence in it. Like when all the friends are just kind of like sleeping together in the same room.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's just a very comforting
It's
feeling.
one of those movies where you're like, where the hell are their parents? And
Oh, these parents are wildly absent.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, but it doesn't make it to the point where you're like, this is a plot hole.
Yeah.
You know, it's very much like these kids are just kind of left to their own devices.
Which I feel like a lot of modern kids are, unfortunately.
Well, I feel like the opposite. I feel like it was much more common to just kind of let your kids run loose in the 70s and 80s, which is also kind of when this is set weirdly, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just kind of speaks to this weird. It's in the time of like transitioning from teen to adult rather than the time of like a set year, you know? It's kind of an amalgam of those references.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Well,
other thoughts on It Follows?
It's on Netflix, so everyone should be able to see it. It's a perfect October movie.
It's very good. I feel like I'd say this is more of a summer movie for me. I don't know, because it's very much about like kids hanging out in a suburb, like, and swimming and not seemingly having to do anything. Like I put this in kind of like the Adventureland kind of thing, where it's like you're just wasting time and like, you know, forming these relationships and like learning how to be a grown up or whatever.
Yeah.
I would say if you wanted October movie with Michael Monroe, do The Guest, because that's very specifically about October. But they're both good for any time of the year. Neither of these a Christmas movie, really.
No. Well, I would watch this at Christmas. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So, Lynn, you posed an interesting question.
I did. We may begin kind of like a question of the week kind of thing. But the first one I wanted to talk about was, what is the scariest movie you've ever seen? I feel like that speaks a lot about a person, and that would kind of help you guys get to know us.
Do you have an answer?
I do. I want you to go first.
All right. The scariest movie I've ever seen is one that not a lot of people like, but the American version of Funny Games.
Oh, yeah, man. I had to turn that shit off.
That messed me up. So if you haven't seen Funny Games, it's about a home invasion, but these two who now they look like alt-right guys,
white polos,
the
Macklemore cut,
they break into a house and terrorize
Tim Roth and Naomi Watts
and their son. But what's so scary to me is that the two guys are aware of the audience, and they interact with the audience, and some people find it really gimmicky. I think it's really clever, and it's really unsettling because of how they break the fourth wall to manipulate the course of the movie. And it's like this real meta commentary about horror movies, but also just deeply disturbing and nihilistic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I caught that on TV a few years ago, and it was so, like, the building of tension and suspense and dread was so intense that there were moments where like the people like dropped eggs and wouldn't leave and like demanded apologies and stuff like that, and then once the actual like first blow of violence, I like had to turn the channel. Like I was too stressed out.
It's so stressful.
It was awful.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's
Michael Haneke.
Yeah,
who is
he made the Austrian. Yeah, so the American version is basically a shot-for-shot remake of his original version.
Yes.
So if you watch either version, you're getting the same thing. Just
one has Michael Pitt though, and Tim Roth and Naomi Watts.
Yep. But this movie will be made or broken by whether or not you're okay with the fourth wall breaking. The second scariest movie I've ever seen is The Descent.
Okay, you hinted at that earlier.
Yeah, It is very visceral, very intense, and claustrophobic. And
That I remember watching that and I spit out my drink.
Really?
That's the first time that's actually happened. What and like my hand tremored and I was like I made a mess all over myself because I was scared.
Oh no. So, what is your scariest movie?
I didn't know we could have two, but all right. I'll do my number one L of all time. And I'm gonna qualify this by saying that I cried during The Conjuring 2.
Oh man.
I was really fucked up by The Babadook. But the scariest movie I've ever seen is We Need to Talk About Kevin, which is about Tilda Swinton. She is a mom, and her and John C. Riley have this little boy named Kevin, and it shows him throughout the different parts of his life. He grows up when he's a kid, when he's a baby, stuff like that. And he grows up to be a school shooter, and he locks a bunch of kids in a gym and shoots them with a bow and arrow and kills them. And she has to take the blame. She, like, everyone in this town blames her for her poor mothering skills, and it doesn't let her off the hook because it goes back, and she hated him. She always hated him because she knew, like,
Yeah.
he would do shit that only she would see, and then the dad would let him off the hook and say she was being too hard on him.
I saw this movie, but I stopped at 30 minutes in because I couldn't handle it.
It's so intense, and the time jumps are crazy because you start with her and her house is getting like splashed with red paint to show like all the blood that's on her hands or whatever.
Which
And
these
then
town people are monsters.
oh, they're terrible. And then they go back and show him growing up and her marriage and stuff, and you just know her husband's not there. Blah 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 blah. All of this stuff happens, and then at the end, it's revealed that before he went and did that, he killed the husband and their daughter.
Yeah.
His sister. He had put bleach in the sister's face, causing her to go blind in one eye, stuff like that. And he has no remorse, and she knows this, but she doesn't know how to stop him. She knows that he's capable of something like this, even as a kid.
It was just so hard to see one of my favorite actresses.
I love Ezra Miller. Oh. Go ahead.
What?
Tilda Swinton?
I love Tilda Swinton.
Me too.
And
Sorry.
I
I heard actresses after I
Yep,
started saying.
you were really quick on the draw.
I love both of them. Sorry.
So it was such a hard time because I mean it seems like we have a school shooting every other day.
All the time. And the thing is, like, it speaks to I have an extreme fear, and I always have, of having a child I can't like or love, or if something like this happens, like, I don't know how I could deal with it, something like that. So it really, like, hit me so hard because as someone who is scared of having children, just because, I have anxiety and I don't know if I can do it right. Also, what if they're evil and I hate them?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's the scariest
That movie
I've
is
ever
grueling.
seen.
Yeah.
So terrifying. And she has to go visit him in prison.
Ugh.
It's unspeakably awful. It's a fantastic movie, though.
So what's your second?
Oh, like Conjuring 2 and the Babadook, bro.
Okay.
Yeah. Those freak me out.
Those are very.
Okay, personal picks?
I have 3 personal picks this week.
Oh my god. He either
I've been
does none
saving
or
them
like
up.
17.
So I finally finished Salem's Lot by Stephen King. And I have mixed feelings.
Okay.
The openings section and the end are both very weak.
Okay.
But the middle section is so good. Like I talked about the other week, and Stephen King just does a great job of building dread as this town rots from the inside out. And then the ending is very lackluster and anticlimactic.
Oh, gross. That's what my mom always said. She was like, He knows how to write the build up, but then you're like, it's a spider. It's aliens. For real. She always says that nothing can live up to the build up.
Yeah, this book definitely is that. I mean, it's
Okay.
definitely worth a read.
Yeah.
It's a good book. It's just it could have been. It's his second book, and it feels you can tell that it's like early on in his writing career. See the other recommendation, the second, 2 or 3. Blade Runner 2049 was one of the best movie experiences I've had. This movie,
Period. In your life.
like on a big screen, yes. This movie is so good looking on the biggest screen you
Is
can.
it because of the baby goose? The goss?
Well, he's always attractive.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere is just so well done. Like there's a lot of poetic cinema.
I saw Roger Deakins did it. I
Mhm.
love him.
Denis Villeneuve is such a great modern director. I'm really excited for whatever he does now.
You pronounce his name right. I pronounce his name wrong. What a turning of the tables.
How the
How the turns have
turntables have
tabled.
turned. I think everyone should go see this. It's hard to market a hard, big budget sci-fi movie. I feel like it's easier to draw interest for like a hard R horror movie than it
Yeah.
is a hard science fiction.
I agree.
It's very well done. I want everyone to see it. I won't talk more about it because anything past the first 5 minutes is like spoiler territory.
Alright. I never saw the original one.
I didn't like the original one,
Okay.
but this doesn't. It ties to the first one, but it also feels standalone enough that it won't ruin it if you haven't seen the first one.
I mentioned earlier, I probably won't see it because robots frighten me. They are one of my greatest fears.
Unpack that.
Well, I'd say it's robots, and then cops, and then puppets. That's the ranking right now.
It's quite an unholy trinity.
Robots freak me the hell out. I don't like it. I don't want them thinking for me. I think they can go bad. I think they can wield. If a Roomba can wield a knife, what else can happen? Don't put me in a self-driving car. Don't pull that shit on me. Don't give me a robot butler. Because that bitch gonna kill me in my sleep. That's what's gonna happen. I also don't really like technology very much. I think we're too dependent on it and it's getting too scary. I ain't gonna send off my DNA to 23andMe. I don't want them keeping my DNA. They're keeping it for something, and you know it's to make robots that are more like people. Fuck robots.
This is Lynn, straight from the backwoods.
I hate robots, bro. I can't even see them in my movies. Ex Machina was okay, mostly because of Oscar Isaac. Not a fan of
Dancing
robes.
King.
No robots. So I believe and trust you, but I probably won't go see Blade Runner 2046, whatever.
Well, for everyone else who doesn't have a robot phobia, go see it. And another recommendation, I've always been wanting to watch it, and now that the series is over, I feel like I can finally binge it.
What a true millennial statement.
Truly. The Leftovers. I'm about 4 episodes in, and it is the saddest thing I've watched.
I had to quit it, dude. I watched the first season, and it was like the most depressing shit.
It's so sad.
Supposedly, it gets amazing in season 2.
I've heard that.
But I didn't stick around long enough.
So, the premise of The Leftovers is, what if the rapture happened, but people disappeared at random? Like, Beyonce went, but also the child molester up the street also went. And everyone is just...
I like how you say Beyonce is a paragon of morality in Christian tradition. I agree, but like...
I feel like in any tradition she is.
Oh, Queen Bee.
So, and everyone...
It's like Left Behind if it was on HBO and they could say fuck.
And show all the nudity. And it's like basically sad people trying their best, the TV series.
Oh my god. But they're all assholes.
They are.
That's why I don't like Carrie Coon though. Oh, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
She's an angel.
So I'm very excited to finish this out. I've been wanting to see it for a long time because it looks like my sad jam with that Max Richter score.
Ooh, the score is really good.
Oh, it's so good.
I like the title music.
Mm-hmm. So those are my 3 recommendations. I might change about The Leftovers because I have 2.5 seasons to go.
Wow, well, I'm sure we'll get an update.
Tune in, keep tuning in for this now Leftovers podcast.
Okay, so I have a personal pick this week. Only one, because Wyeth was being extra. No, I'm kidding. I only have
Okay.
one. So it's a book. Who knew that I read? I didn't. So it's called The Shotgun Arcana by R.S. Belcher. It is a supernatural western, and it is long. Let me look. It's about 450
Oh man.
pages.
A good
I've
chunk
had
of
it
reading.
for a long time, and I'm finally finishing it. But it is the second book in a series, which I didn't know until I was like decently through it. But the first one is called The Six Gun Tarot, and it is centered on a town in Nevada in, I believe, 1870, something like that, called Golgotha. And it is one of those books where everyone in a town has a different thing that they do, you know? So, Malachi Bick is a character, and he's a fallen angel, and he runs the whorehouses, and everybody kind of is indebted to him in town. And then there's Mutt, who's a deputy, who's a Native American, and he is kind of descended from the coyote god. And John Highfather is the sheriff, who has been rumored to be a dead man because he has a hangman's noose scar around his neck, and he's the man who can't die. There's Maud Stapleton, who her grandmother was Anne Bonny, the pirate queen, so she knows all of the, assassin tricks, and she's an amazing warrior. So basically, the plot of the book is one of Malachi Bick's fellow fallen angels named Raziel has this skull, which is the skull of the first murderer, and it's like has the power to unmake anything. And all of these teeth were scattered kind of to the four winds. So all of the people who have one of the teeth are just the most depraved, unbelievably evil murderers, cannibals, rapists, all of this, and they all descend on Golgotha, and Raziel leads them to take over the town. Ooh. So I'm at the climax where they're trying to take the town back, and it's really good. And every chapter is a tarot card. So Justice, or the Hierophant reversed, or the Queen of Pentacles, the Three of Swords. And every now and then there'll be a very short chapter in italics, and that's one of the people with one of the teeth. And so in the end you meet all of them because they come to town. I wish there was more Western horror. I agree. I can't really think of too many movies. I've wanted to see Bone Tomahawk. I do too. I've also been scared to see Bone Tomahawk. It sounds similar to this. I mean, I would really love to read the other ones in this series. Not that you need to have read it, because but it's so good and so imaginative and beautifully written, and just creepy as hell. It's awesome. That was good. Yeah, it's really good. So that's my personal pick for the day. All right. Final thoughts? Oh, well, what's next week? Oh, man, let me check our schedule really quick. I just edited it, so it should be up. Okay. So next week, we will be doing Scary Godmother and Over the Garden Wall. Yes! we both love Over the Garden Wall, and I love Scary Godmother, so we're going to
I'm glad
watch
that
both of
Over the
them.
Garden Wall is on Hulu now, so I need to
Yes,
start that.
that's one of the few things that I have on my computer that I
Mhm.
got from people on zip drives. The other two are My Neighbor Totoro and The Babadook. So those are the three
Quite a
downloads
trio.
I have in my videos. But yeah,
All right. Well, as always, thank you for listening.
have a good spooky month. Bye bye.
He behaved like a man demented, obsessed, utterly lost.